Hi, everyone. My name is Tracy. I work here at the Fairborn Library. I'm here to give you a little more information on continuing your genealogy research, this time continuing it in the cemetery. So let's go ahead and get started and see what we can learn today. So why would you want to search in a cemetery for genealogy records? Well, there could be many reasons. You found a relative and you've hit a brick wall. There's some information you're looking for, you can't find it. You've run out of other places to check. You have questions and family mysteries you want to find about. You're already in the area visiting a library, so why don't you just stop at the cemetery and do a little more research? You want to have a picture of some kind to go with your family research, or you need to have proof of a date of death. And these are all the types of different information you can find through records at the cemetery and actually at the cemetery. Everything from their name, birth date, death date, to their age, how they died, the cost of the funeral, if they were a member of any kind of organization, additional relatives, their economic status, occupation, all those can and may be found with a little research into the cemetery. There are different types of cemeteries, and they vary from place to place and from town to town. But generally, these are the 9 main types of cemeteries you're going to come across. The big difference is most of the cemeteries now are these public and town cemeteries that you see in use, or private cemeteries. Older cemeteries tended to be more of the family cemeteries and private cemeteries. The reason you need to know these differences is so you know who to contact before you gain access if it's not open to the public. When you can go, where their exact locations are, and what records they may have. So where do you even start when you research? First thing you need to do is find out where they're buried. So you need to locate the cemetery. Start with, where did they last live? Do you know where they died? Can you find it on their death certificate? Can you find it in an obituary or wills? Or does grandma have random papers stuffed in the attic, like old diaries that may have mentioned it? Or old letters that may have mentioned somebody passing away? Check all that stuff to get you to the right cemetery. If you're lucky enough, you can try an online search through Billion Graves, Find a Grave, Interment.net. All those different kinds of sites do have searchable features where you can search by name or by cemetery. If you can't find the name of the cemetery, or you do find the cemetery and it's an old one that doesn't really have any online presence or contact information or anything like that, try contacting the county commissioners. I've found this a lot with family burial plots from the early 1800s. Cemeteries just aren't maintained by the family anymore, and there's nobody to take care of it. You can find the location of them at their recorder's office. Old county road maps sometimes have the cemetery blocked off, that you can see where people were buried. Check at the funeral home or the church that they were a member of. You can also find information. Check the local papers. Don't just check the obituary section, check the social notices section, death notices. These were often social events. They were big gatherings, lots of people were involved, especially if it was a small town and 1800s, early 1900s. The whole town was involved. Everybody was part of the funeral. There was a big procession and a wake and all that kind of thing. So you may want to check into diaries, journals, just regular newspaper articles, not just the obituaries and death notices. A lot of places, such as the Daughters of the American Revolution, the Sons of the American Revolution, are starting to transcribe documents of cemetery records, either what's inscribed on the headstones or what has been kept at the cemetery office. So be sure to check out those places too. If your family you know is military, check on Fold 3 or the National Archives website. You can find a lot of information there about where they were buried and sometimes scans of documents with the dates and information you're looking for. Also, check out the local history room and history books. You can find these at your library. They often have mention of old cemeteries and what was there and other information of how to find out where these places are. Some things you might be looking for. Since you're looking for a variety of information, names, dates, other family members, that kind of thing. You should look for the records of interment, cemetery books, deeds, plot maps. All these types of documents listed here can show you so much information. And you may be surprised to learn that your grandfather's grave was not bought by your grandmother or by him. It was bought by somebody else. Or when your grandfather died, your grandmother bought 5 or 6 plots instead of just one for her and him. So look around. You may find a lot more information than what you really realize you have. So after you find the cemetery office and you've looked at all these types of records, next go out and find the grave. Actually physically go out, look at the grave if at all possible, see what you can find about there. Look at the graves in that section, if it's a larger cemetery, or the whole cemetery. You may have family you didn't know you have, or people buried in between your grandparents that aren't your relatives that you know of. You may uncover some family mysteries that you weren't aware of. So when you're actually looking at the stones, look for things like names, nicknames, dates, relationships. One of the gravestones I've seen recently had the wife's gravestone had wife, mother, grandmother, great grandmother written on it. So you knew this person had kids, grandkids, great grandkids. You knew this line continued, so you have more places to look. You may have religious symbols carved into it. Some companies actually paid for their employees' headstones. They may have information about that. You can usually tell bigger stones, more intricate, typically tended to have a higher economic status. They had military service. The condition of the stone can tell you a great deal. If it's old and weathered, or if it's new and shiny, at least give you a place to start with. And iconography, there are tons and tons of books out there about what the different symbols and characters and figures mean and the shape of the headstones mean. So check out some of those books too. It can be pretty interesting, especially in older cemeteries. There are a few types of gravestones. There's beveled, ledger, obelisk. Again, the more ornate and decorative they are, the more expensive they tended to be. So it gives you an idea of the economic status. Most of these shown here are relatively new headstones, not early stones. Some of those may just be a rock with information carved in it. That's just a type of stone that's sitting around. There are some key things to remember when you're doing cemetery research. You're gonna have to actually interact with some people, either by phone or in person. Right now, especially with the COVID issues going on, you may have to call and see if you can get in to meet with them, set up an appointment, come in and look at their records. Some places will email and scan you stuff. Some places won't, you have to check. And also when hours are that you can come and visit. You may only be able to find some information. You guys have done genealogy research, you know you're not going to find everything you want in one spot, unfortunately. And things may not be complete or accurate. This is just a place to jump off and get some more information. Always call before you go. There's nothing worse than getting to a cemetery, being all ready to go and finding out they're closed for the day. So just call and check before you go. Have a little cemetery kit with you. Nothing major, just a camera, soft brush and water. That way if there's moss around the inscription, you can kind of brush it off. Paper, maps, and a checklist of everything you're hoping to find, and information about the people you're going to meet. There's nothing worse than going to meet someone and not remembering their name. Check with them if there's any policies before you start cleaning a stone, because you do not want to damage a stone, because chances are you'll have to pay for any damage you do. And if it's really damaged, leave it to the professionals. Let somebody else come in and change it and clean it, because you know you don't be responsible for breaking anything. There are some places that do not let you do rubbings. There are places that allow that. So check with them what you're allowed to do. Your best bet is to take a soft brush, just gently brush off the loose stuff and take really good pictures. And here's a list of more places you guys can get some information if you're interested. And you can always stop by your local library and talk to somebody there, and I'm sure they'll have some more ideas for you as well. I will have a copy of the slideshow attached to the bottom so you can print it off and go back as you need. And hopefully that's a good introduction for you guys and getting you started in some genealogy research outside of your house and get you out into the field and looking a little bit at the cemeteries that could be around you. Thanks and have a great day.